I grew up with the My Dying Bride and Anathema and all those Peaceville bands, and then Candlemass and obviously Black Sabbath, a Type O Negative, and we just we were in a doomy mood when doing Venus Doom, but then touring after the album, when we were playing songs like Sleepwalking Past Hope that lasts for 10 minutes and there's gazillion different parts, it felt really natural to do something very different. More maybe in a Razor Blade Romance way, like bigger choruses and shorter songs and all that. And I don't know, it happened fairly naturally. I had a few songs. We went to the rehearsal place. That's how they turned out. Like Saint Valentine was the first one we started playing, and then it just started from there, downhill. And meeting with Matt Squire, the producer, it's just. He loves big melodies and so do I. So we had the kind of like the idea of trying to mix Depeche Mode with the Cult, have a big American rock sound combined with like Kraftwerk. Weird, like really late 70s, early 80s kind of synths, and then my peculiar vocals on top. So that was the kind of like the idea we had, and I think that we succeeded pretty well. And we wanted to create an album that would be really immediate and kind of really in your face in a way that it wouldn't let go. Not a lot of like easygoing instrumental atmospheric parts. More just bum 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 bum. Wham bam. Thank you, ma'am. Hold on, how did it go? When did Venus Doom come out? Came out 2007, I think, in the fall. So that's when we started touring. Our European tour ended in, I think, March 2008. Then I think I did the Summer Wine thing at one point. Then we played festivals. Yeah, we did a few festivals. We did I think Rock am Ring and Rock im Park and a few other festivals. So we were working all the time. So when the summer of 2008 ended, the festivals, then I started working on the music more or less. I flew over to LA to meet with the record label, talk about the direction, talk about where my head is at with the album. And we had some new people working at the label, so I wanted to meet them. And that's when I started writing the music. So we haven't kind of like taken any time off. It's been more or less work all the way through. Matt Squire, and he's I had the opportunity of meeting a few producers in America. We discussed with Tim Palmer, who's produced a lot of stuff for us in the past, that it's not necessarily the wisest idea to do or decision to do the same old again. We wanted to try something different, and I met a few people, and then Matt was the only guy who came in after listening to our demos, came in with tons of notes about each and every song, little tiny details, like one word. I don't like that word there because, and maybe that guitar solo could be in a different key. Stuff a good producer should do. Just give ideas, because as a band, we'd be working on the stuff for such a long time that we couldn't see the forest from the trees, and, we couldn't just see the big picture. So he came in, he had really good ideas, and he's he was born 76, I was born 76, so we both grew up listening to the same kind of music, but he lived, when he was a kid, he lived in Washington, D.C., and I lived in Helsinki, so that's the difference, like 4,000 miles in between, and we just got along really well. We liked a lot of the same stuff. He grew up listening to Bad Brains and Depeche Mode. And I was listening to a lot of Bad Brains and Depeche Mode and Sonic Youth and Husker Du and a lot of alternative guitar bands and then he did a lot of pop albums, so we weren't sure whether he's able to pull off a good rock album. But then we heard the new Used album he had produced, and that's a pretty heavy one. So we knew that he's got the he's a rocker at heart. He did a Fever You Can't Sweat Out by Panic at the Disco. Their like big first album. Then he's done like 303, Don't Trust a Hoe. That's a big hit in America. He did a rock remix for Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl. So he's really been in the pop world, and then like bands like Death Cab for Cutie, and a lot of altsy, poppy bands, and I like the fact that he loves big choruses and big melodies, because I grew up with, you know, that kind of music, the '80s rock and roll. It was all about being really big sounding, so so it worked out really well. It was a good combination of different things. We always keep on fucking around with the ideas for a long, long time. I had a couple of songs, a song called Disarm Me with Your Loneliness, and the song Catherine Wheel I had for a couple of years, more or less, the basic ideas for the songs. They just didn't fit on any of the him albums before, and they just didn't feel right, and we couldn't get them to work. So basically, what we did was I sat back home with an acoustic guitar, got the basic ideas, the melodies, the chord structures, the riffs down, and then we went to the rehearsal place, started jamming the ideas and changing tempos, changing keys, figuring out little stops and breaks and accentuation of things and the dynamics of the songs. And we did that for about, well, 7 months. So we demoed at the rehearsal place. I've got a Pro Tools set up, so we were demoing that stuff. Like each and every song was demoed maybe 4 times. And so we were really, really ready when we went into the studio. A lot of times, you know, when you go into the studio, it takes a while to get the songs right. But this time around, we had done our homework, so to speak. So it was pretty fast. The actual recording of the album was like, what, 9 weeks. So it's not a long time for a band to do that. And then the mixing was like 2 weeks. No, that was done in Los Angeles, because Matt just moved over from Washington, D.C. to L.A. less than a year ago. And he'd work at a studio called The Lair, a little studio, but with shit tons of old instruments and old amplifiers and really good mood. A bit like a gothic-looking place. It had like chandeliers and you know, crimson velvet curtains and stuff like that. It was a really nice, really comfy, really tiny place, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, the mixing was done by a guy called Neil Avron, who did the last Linkin Park album, and he produced and mixed all the Fall Out Boy stuff. And he's a really in-demand, great guy, but really good, I think, rock mixer. He just makes the drums sound amazingly big, and I think that's the difference between European sound and American sound. You know, if you listen to like Foo Fighters or whatever, you know, the drums are always massive, of Guns N' Roses, and we wanted that kind of a sound. We thought that anyway, we're bringing in the Kraftwerk, so we're bringing in the kind of like the German, you know, krautrock weirdness, doing that, and then the English kind of early '80s new wave synth stuff, you know, Depeche and all that, Erasure and, you know, Yazoo and all that, you know, bringing that sound in with the keyboards. The songs are very melancholy. I still like sad songs, and I wanted the album just to be, hopefully, like Depeche Mode albums, in a way that Depeche Mode, they always have sad songs, but they still they still make you dance. You know, people are not crying at Depeche Mode concerts. They're having a great time. So uplifting melancholy was maybe one of the kind of the main frameworks or the main ideas behind the album. To make an album that you can, you know, drink beer to and have a good time to, but not make it happy in any sense. We've been lucky in a way that in a lot of countries we kind of have created our own genre, so people don't know. There's not a certain sound to be expected from our band, because I think that a lot of the albums sound different, and we've used American mixers before, mixing engineers, and we've recorded albums all over the world, in Wales, in LA, and in Helsinki, and all that, and they still sound like him albums, and I don't know how you would be able to cater to a certain market, like writing a song and thinking that this might work in San Diego. Matt, because I had discussions with Matt about it, because he said that he usually has a hard time of letting go, you know, of a song, And I have the same thing too. I'm always like speculating, should there be some weird sound somewhere, or is the chorus good enough, or should there be one more vocal harmony there, or what about the snare? Should we have like a distorted snare hit? Like little details. But this time around, I think that the first song we finished was In Venere Veritas. We did a rough mix of it. We did it really fast, the song and the basic recording for it. And it just felt finished. It was like there's nothing to add. So we used that as a template for the rest of the album. So like, it's a tough thing. You don't want to have too much stuff going on in the song, but not too little. It has to breathe, the song, but then again, it has to also have enough ear candy. Well, Screamworks is still the name of the album, so yeah, Screamworks has been the working title like for a year. I felt that we've always had that kind of like the yin and yang type of thing, and this time around, the word scream is yin and yang in itself, since there are very different kinds of screams of pain and screams of pleasure. So it's in the in the head of the person who reads the title, how they see it, how they feel about it. And then it is like an Edvard Munch's, the painting, that creating music and being in a band is like a big inner scream. It's very cathartic to get the songs out, and that's a big scream. So it just worked. It was simple, and I wanted the album to have the word "works" in there. I was listening to the selected ambient works by Aphex Twin, for example, and I just I've always loved the selected works of T.S. Eliot. I like the pomposity of it, the pompous vibe of it, and then the subtitle being Love in Theory and Practice, chapters 1 to 13. So it's like, White Zombies, Astro Creep, 2000, blah, 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 which nobody can remember. So Screamworks for me is the main title. Music always comes first for me. Maybe I have a couple of lines, a couple of ideas, for lyrics, but then the melody of the song demands a certain rhythm for the lyrics, so I'd rather do it that way around than write the lyrics first. Well, it's all very real, but it's not about missing that much. It's more about what was going on in my life. I kind of fell for somebody when I started writing the songs. That's always a good inspiration to have a muse, and then it never really happened. And at least not yet, because I've been working on the album, so there hasn't been any time to work on a relationship, a possible one. No, it probably will never happen, but it was an exciting time for me to write about my feelings as the feelings were happening, as opposed to a lot of times you're writing about stuff that has happened. Yes. You're writing about in past tense, or you're writing about your hopes. Like imagination, working on stuff that might be happening in the future. But this is probably the first time that the stuff was actually happening at that time when I was writing. So it made all the difference to me personally, because it was just exciting, and recording the album, because there was there was stuff happening at that time, that very time. So I was on the tip of my toes all the time while working the album. It's tough for me to say. I've only heard the new album maybe 3 times or 4 times. I've heard the songs a gazillion times when we were working on it, but I'm too close to the album yet to be able to say the difference. But then again, I was listening to Venus Doom before we started mixing this one. And if you listen to Loving Cold Blood, or Dead Love Is Lane, or even Bleed Well, I think that they have a lot of positivity in them. It's just the sound is really dirty, and it's a gloomy album sound-wise. It's got so much dark atmospherics going on, and that was the idea. It was like our doom love metal version of Jane's Addiction's Ritual de la Habitual. That was just making it psychedelic and weird. And this time around, it was just, since you don't want to repeat yourself and do exactly the same, you want to do something different. We just wanted to have a very cohesive album that when you put it on, you get it instantly. Well, we had the positive problem of having a lot of songs we're discussing as being singles at first. I like Dying Song. I like Scared to Death. I like Heart Killer. I like, but those were probably my favorites for as a first single. You know, something up tempo and all that. But we thought that maybe Scared to Death is a bit too poppy, and then Heart Killer is very straight to the point, and it has everything the album has. It's got the the Knight Rider, David Hasselhoff keyboards in the beginning, that stuff, and then it's got the kind of darkly humored lyrics on it, and it's got Frankenstein in the lyrics as well, which is always a good thing. So there's Lazarus, and then there's Frankenstein. So that's always a bonus for a rock song. But no, it's just one of them things that, you know, obviously we being so close to the album, there's a lot of tracks I like. I like Acoustic Funeral, one of the tracks in the end, and I like the last track. But obviously those are not the first single choice. So I think that what we did, or what we usually do, is we play the album to different kinds of people and see how they hear it. And a lot of people came up with either Scared to Death or Heart Killer. And then we thought the Heart Killer maybe it's a bit more up-tempo, a bit more rock. So thought that that's a good opener. But we'll see what happens, you know. Singles is tough, and different countries are very different with their radios. It's tough to get rock music played on radio, at least in Europe. In America, they have, you know, specialized rock radios, and they're huge. But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that'd be January. But because it'd be a nice way to start a year. The album is coming out on the day of Valentine's. Not on the day of Valentine's, but the week of Valentine's, on the 12th of February. Is the idea to get it out here in Germany, and so it'd be just nice to get rid of this year and start fresh with the new year and new song and new album and new video and all that. But we'll see. There's so many variables we don't have any control of that. We just. And I'm still working on the cover artwork. So we have the artist who did Dark Light and who did Venus Tomb. We have him. He's on his Photoshop at the moment, and he keeps on sending me files, and I keep on sending him shitty comments and files back. But we're probably going to be working on some of the old stuff, yeah. Usually what we've been doing is that if we have a new album coming out, we try to figure out if there's some changes we want to make to the old songs that would take the old songs closer to the sound of the new album. It's like Bleed Well, for example, could be a song that would be on this album. The only difference would be they'd be a bit faster, I'd sing a bit higher, and then the chorus would go into a crash. So, you know, little things like that, they're not necessarily, if you're not a musician, they're not necessarily things you notice if you see us play live, but it makes, hopefully, the set a bit more cohesive. It makes sense, and there's like a, you know, thin red line in there. So that kind of stuff we're working on at the moment. The guys are rehearsing back in Helsinki. I'm having the first rehearsals with them this Friday, and I want to bring back a couple of old songs like And Love Said No, which is one of my favorite tracks that was on a compilation, but we never really played it live. I want to work on that, and maybe figure out a new cover. I've got a couple of ideas of a new cover song. So I think it's the whole world. You know, we're still not thinking about markets, but obviously we want to be successful. And it'd be great if there would be 10 million people who buy the album. It's very unlikely, but you never know. And, you know, so we're working as hard as possible to make sure that the album is good, and to make sure that we are available as a band, and to make sure that we tour. So we let people know that we are around and we're coming to your town, and, you know, stuff like that. So everything's important. And I think that in our band, it's always been about surprises. You know, we never knew that Love Metal was going to do so well in the UK. We never knew that Razorblade Romance will do so well in Germany and Switzerland and Austria. And then we never knew that our first album would do so well in Finland. So it's always been really surprising. So maybe this album would do great in China or something. You never know. And you know, the world is such a massive place that we're happy to basically be able to play everywhere. We have most of next year booked already. You know, that's how it works with bands. You have to book stuff really early. So what we're gonna do now is, you know, I know my rest of this year, so I'm gonna go back home. We're gonna rehearse with the band for the New Year's Eve gigs. We're playing Helden Festival once again, which is this time around is the last 4 days of this year. We're gonna play in Helsinki, and we need to shoot a video before that. I need to do all the B-sides before that. We need to finish up the cover artwork before that. Then there's Christmas, and which needs to be spent with parents. And then in February, when the album comes out, we're hoping to play a couple of gigs as record release parties in Europe before we head over to Australia, playing a Sonic Wave festival that is like a series of festivals there's Faith No More and Jane's Addiction. There's really cool bands on the bill. So we're going there for about like a week and a half. Then we're flying back to Europe. We're doing a tour in England, after which we fly over to America. We do a North American tour, including Canada. Then we fly back and hopefully do as many European festivals as possible. And then in August, September, we start our European tour. That is hopefully going to be done around Halloween. So again, it would be from Valentine till Halloween. And after that, we want to keep some time open in our calendars, so to speak, that if the album should do really well, let's say in China, we would have the time to go over to China and tour more, or tour there for the first time. Or if the album does really well in Germany, we have the opportunity of coming back. Or if it does really well in the UK, doing the same thing. So we're basically booked until Christmas next year. You know, cell phones nowadays, they always have the voice memo thing. I'll be using that, and then I have dictaphones, and then I love, there's an application for that at least works on Macs, is called Tape Deck, which is just you click it, and it opens up like a simple old school 80s tape recorder. And it's really good for just like, there's all the buttons, and the rewind does the, you can hear the voice like in the 80s. So it just reminds me of my youth, and that's what I've been using. And also, I don't like to put too many ideas down, because I think that if the idea is good enough, you should remember it. I think, usually. You know, but at times you have a vibe that, oh, this idea is so brilliant, I have to get it down. And then when you do, it's usually shit. But if it's something that keeps on following you, or you remember it, lyrically I put things down. I have a long list of like, just phrases and song titles and stuff like that, and at times it helps when you're writing lyrics. If you're missing something, and you can just read through stuff you've had, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you take a piece. You just see different words, and it just opens up the writer's block.